Hey YouTube, Joe here, aka Monty Ollie. This is one of the infrequent updates to my personal channel. This one is going to be added to the atheist section. So if that interests you, continue watching, and if not, I understand. As you may have noticed in a previous video, I recently came out as an atheist. And it was a long road to get there because I came through being raised in an evangelical form of Catholicism, a very dogmatic form of Catholicism. Anyway, I've been watching a lot of videos recently, a couple of videos and I have a friend on Facebook who's an evangelical Christian, and there was one phrase that I just want to touch on, and that is personal relationship with Jesus, or personal relationship with God. And that expression rubs me the wrong way, and I'll tell you why. Because I don't understand how a person can have a personal relationship with a voice in their head. And either it's a voice in their head, like either they actually literally hear a voice in their head, in which case they've either got a mental illness or they're hearing something. They're hearing voices in their head, and that's not normal. Or they think they're hearing voices in their head, which is they have a feeling of what God would probably say, and so they presume that's what God's telling them, and God's telling them through their intuition, or they're intuiting that that's what God would have said, or that's what the Bible said. In which case they don't hear voices in their head at all, but they're talking to themselves and talking themselves into something based on something they've read. And in both of those cases, that is not a relationship. A relationship requires kind of give and take. And yeah. So when I was a Christian and when I prayed, call me crazy, but there were years and years and years where I would beg God for some kind of sign, or I would beg God for an answer to a question. And evangelical Christians will tell me I'm just not a very good listener, or that God was giving me the answer all along and I just didn't hear it. In which case I don't have voices in my head, so I'm proud to report I don't have voices in my head. But what they would say is that, I wasn't tuning into God or whatever. Whereas in my opinion, there was just no voice in my head. There was no answer to be had. And so what I was forced to do was focus on my own intuition, or my own morality. And the problem is that morality is a learned thing. And I was just thinking about this because I heard a really good interview with Michael Vick, who was that NFL football player who was recently served time in prison for dog fighting. And one of the things he said, because he's apparently come out the other side grinning, and he believes dog fighting is wrong, and now he's speaking out on behalf of he's advocating against dog fighting. And I don't pass any judgment on him. I don't know if he's authentic or not. But one thing he was saying was that he remembers being introduced to dog fighting when he was a child. He was probably about 7 or 8. And he said the first time he ever saw it, he was rather horrified. I mean, a little kid watching dogs kill each other and bloody, mangle. It's awful. It's awful. And anyone would react, viscerally or whatever, or like really with horror to such a thing. But all the men in his life that he looked up to, all the people in his life that he looked up to, thought this was really cool, thought the dogs fighting was awesome, and that he should just man up and learn to bet on them and think it was like the stronger dog was the better dog. And he was trained, he was taught this, how to kind of inure himself to the blood and guts and pain of the animal. And I think to myself that I was taught by kind of bleeding heart liberals to be a kind and compassionate person. So I just flipped the coin, and that's the side the coin landed on for me. So I happen to have what I call a good morality, but it could have just as easily gone the other way. And there is no God or gods or some benevolent force that makes me this way now. It's just learned behavior that I recoil in horror to horrible things. And I think whenever I have to trust in my intuition to make a decision, what a Christian might pray to God for an answer for, I have to trust on my intuition for. And when I trust my intuition usually leads me to a place that is my own morality, which is something that was taught to me and something that I've devised over my lifetime. And that's what makes me make the right decision for me. And I was thinking of another instance of a friend of mine who, I remember having this conversation with somebody regarding why I never called God he. I had a problem with he and the father figure, the father God figure. And they said, well, God is a loving God. It's a personal God who loves you like your father. And I said, for people who had an alcoholic kind of absent, he was there physically, but he was an emotionally absent father. And I have a friend who has who had an abusive father, and like an absolute abuser. And you know, for people who don't have a relationship with their father, that's a hard sell. Trying to sell someone on the idea that God is a loving father, and when you don't know what that means, so you just try and imagine what that might mean, and that's maybe your idea of a father God, and it's stupid. It's just a way of trying to put into, you know, human perspective something that is not real. It's like trying to explain Santa. Now here's something, because we grew up in an evangelical Christian household where there was very little Santa. We were never really taught the myth of Santa. And Santa came and left like a crappy present, unwrapped under the tree, like a cheapo present under the tree. But all the rich kids down the street used to get tons of presents from Santa wrapped. And I remember when I was about 7 or 8, like freaking out about the injustice of it all and having a showdown with my mother and saying, like, stop lying to me. I know it's not true. And she eventually fessed up and said it's not true. And I was so upset at having been lied to, you know. But the point of this story is that the myth of Santa is something that some kids believe in very strongly, and they have a frame of reference. They have stories told to them when they're young that frame it in their minds in such a way that they can, that they really, really do believe. Whereas I had no frame of reference. I really didn't know what it was. So even when it was revealed to me that it was all a lie anyway, I wasn't terribly disappointed, because it wasn't like I was losing something I thought was true. It was what I was losing was the trust in my mother, because she'd lied to me. But and I've never forgotten that, incidentally, which is just interesting. I was a weird kid on that front, I guess. I guess most kids don't really get that upset when they find out there's no Santa. But whenever people talk to me about having a personal relationship with Jesus, I always think of it. I always substitute the word Santa for Jesus, because that is a myth that you were taught as a child and you believed in strongly. And if you have a personal relationship with Santa, you know, you've kind of got a problem. You do. You have a problem. And so, you know, whether or not God is real or not, which, you know, I don't even want to go there. You're talking to voices in your head, or you're concocting things in your mind and making it sound like it's a different voice in your head when it's not. Or failing that, you're consulting a book that was written thousands of years ago that's full of, you know, misogyny and pro-slavery and hatred and blood and guts and gore and you know, and that's your idea of morality, where, you know, anyway, just a few thoughts. It's late and I just couldn't sleep, and that was what was crossing my mind. The Michael Vick story is being taught morality, and how it's, you know, it sometimes takes a lifetime to unlearn the morality you're taught as a child. And, you know, it's just by sheer and dumb luck that if you get taught, you know, a correct morality, or a morality that feels right to you, that maybe falls in line with, you know, Judeo-Christian beliefs or whatever, you know, you're just one of the lucky ones that you happen to fit into society. Because if you're born to psycho parents who teach you, you know, that teach you a bunch, you know, ill morality or whatever, you know, you just flip that coin and lost. And anyway, have a good night, you guys. Good night.